Hello and welcome to the Scotland Rugby News podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg-Shaped, and him, the editor from Scotland Rugby News, the one and the only, Mr. Gavin Harper. Hello, sir.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. We've obviously, you and I have had a bit of chat about Portugal, and we've spoken to a Portuguese legend about it, which was quite a nice thing to do. And it's just it's this funny in between. You have a big build up to South Africa, and then this weekend you just know it's going to be all change, and it's Portugal. It's just it's a nice thing about the Autumn Nations, but it's also just this weird thing that I struggle with about caps and players being picked, but there's nothing I can do about it, so stop moaning about it. But it's an interesting time, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. It does all look, from the sort of glitz of Rassie, Sia, Eben, and the Springboks. It does all feel a wee bit flat. No sort of harm to Portugal, but they're nothing like the same draw. They're not. I don't think there's another home nation that's got a week like this in the midst of their autumn. But and look, I think there's a discussion to be had about caps and the merit of this game against a non-cap game against Chile. We've touched on it before, but yeah,
I like it. I like that Portugal are like. There's a lot of it I like. Portugal are getting a shot, and in the World Cup they beat Fiji and they had a crack against Georgia, but they're largely an amateur bunch of players that are coming, and that team we field against South Africa is not exactly, but it's close to Gregor's probably 23, give or take.
Yeah.
A Johnny Gray, Darcy Graham, there's a few things that potentially would come into it, but that was the strongest team he had at the time. And this weekend, that's not going to be what it is. But for Portugal to come and potentially be in front of 55, 60,000 folk is one of the cool things about rugby, and that amateur players are going to get that exposure. It just, the Springboks, it was all guns blazing. That was like the World Cup final, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's two totally different challenges. And actually, I think, like, we've asked Gregor, and we spoke to John DL yesterday, and we were asking about complacency. And I think it's a fair point, because it'd be so easy to say, well, this is the lull after the high of building up for the Springboks. But you look at, I think it would be fair to assume Gregor's going to change the whole 15, if not pretty much close to. And actually, there might be opportunities for players. I'm thinking somebody like Rory Hutchinson, who has hardly had a sniff for Scotland. And I know it's a game against Portugal, and what are we going to discover about him against that calibre of opposition? But it's a chance for him to play for Scotland and put his best performance against somebody like Sione's. So, I think that's where the complacency goes, and we have to take the sort of Portugal challenge at face value.
Yeah, and I hope Portugal have a right good go, and I hope the supporters that are at Murrayfield support Portugal. Like, I mean, it's not going to get the roar that Scotland get, but if an amateur rugby player scores a try against Scotland in front of 55,000 folk at Murrayfield, I would like to think folk are going to cheer and clap that.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. Like, you talked about our Portuguese guest, and I think when we spoke to him earlier, the feeling was Scotland are going to win, and win pretty comfortably. I think if Portugal can score a couple of tries, given that their team is basically all amateur, like, they're well within their rights to celebrate that. And I think that folk at Murrayfield will recognise that. It's almost like a game from a bygone era, this, because, like, you don't get these games now, apart from maybe at a World Cup, but even then, they're few and far between.
I got to announce at Murrayfield for a wee bit for Scotland games, and Scotland played Fiji, and Bill Mata scored under the posts, and I gave it a big try scorer for Fiji, and it was a total dab squib. I was expecting there to be big cheers, and it was like, nah, he plays for Fiji. I was like, I know, but like 2 weekends ago, 7,000 of you were cheering for him. Anyway, and there's another bit to the Autumn Nations. That Fiji team that played against Wales, and the quality of that team compared to the team that Scotland played against the week before, because it's outside of something called an international window. Like, I know money but I would like to see Scotland play Fiji full tilt, like back to what have we learned? If Scotland had played that full blown Fiji team, the world rankings came out on Sunday, I think, didn't they? If Fiji do a number against Scotland, all of a sudden, it's not fair teams, basically. And I know this isn't the point of the pod, and I'm back up on moaning about these things, but Fiji, to be taken seriously, they have to be taken seriously, but they're never going to be allowed their players outside an international window.
I suppose the flip side of that was they were playing a Scotland team without their best players. But
correct, but Wales had, and I know Wales are in a bit of, but a full-blown Scotland against a full-blown Fiji, right, go for it. Let's see. Half, Scotland or an Edinburgh Glasgow select against Fiji without their play, and God love it. I mean, selling out the stadium, that's class. Like, to do that.
Back to that point, you said this before, that international rugby in another era was supposed to be your best against our best, and Fiji and Drua against Edinburgh and Glasgow is what that game was. And I don't think enough was made, and probably that's the fault of me and others, that not enough was made of the fact that Fiji were missing so many good players that, yes, they were all coming from one club, but their level was hampered, was reduced by the fact that Tuisova and Nayafalevu won their
Tuisova. I mean,
he's just unbelievable.
Sit down, son. Like, he just swatted. Was it Thomas Williams? He just swatted him away.
Tell you what, Tuisova against Tuipulotu would have been some head-to-head. We've had a comment here which is probably reflective of how people feel about Welsh rugby.
And Ross, I think you're back. I think you were with us last week, but and I get this, right? I understand this, and we've been there as Scotland. But who's going to make it better? Like Gatlin, that Welsh depth just seems to have almost disappeared. The days of, you could have picked the 15. You could have picked it at its pomp, and that's not true actually, because there was a competition at 10, but you had Phillips at night, and Mike Phillips has been pretty vocal this week. But I mean, Jamie Roberts was the best 12 in the world. Sam Warburton was playing, Alan Wynne-Jones, like Gethin. It was just stacked. They've not got that now.
And I think the problem is that while they had that team, Jonathan Davis, Lee Halfpenny, Liam Williams, there were probably 2 players for every position of about the same age.
Remember Nicky Robinson, the standoff?
Yeah.
If he'd been Scottish at that time, he would have had 50 caps at standoff.
Without a doubt. And there are others. You think of like Stephen Jones against James Hook, Lee Halfpenny against Liam Williams. It was almost like, and it was a total embarrassment of riches. The problem has been they've got rid of, or these players have all moved on, and they've been left with a total chasm because they haven't done anything about bringing in players to fill the kind of gap underneath. So now all of a sudden, Gatlin's faced with this challenge of basically rebuilding a whole team in one go and trying to get these guys experience at international level whilst also winning. And the winning part just isn't happening. And to be fair, they've, winning's a habit, but equally so is losing, and it becomes really difficult when you're stuck in that rut of losing games that you shouldn't lose. But I have to say, back to Ross's second point, Fiji won. I think Fiji were, Fiji massively underperformed, and they totally shot themselves in the foot at Murrayfield. Like, they just gave themselves far, far too much to chase down.
But you can see what, and this is the thing, when it comes to World Cup and they get to spend time together, when they get to go on tour, they didn't get to meet up at any other point other than when it's business. And that's what I mean, this playing outside international window. I don't know how much that puts in Fijian rugby union's coffers. It must be worth it. But like, was it Pele said that at some point, an African nation will win the Football World Cup, and he hoped that would be before 2000. But it's not happened, and I don't know when it's going to happen. But how cool would it be if Fiji were to get to a World Cup semi-final, a World Cup final, and a level, and you see Tonga getting out the group stage, and you see Samoa get. Anyway, I'm back on my. Anyway. South Africa, what was it like, mate? What was it like? Tell me.
It was brilliant. It was, I've talked and we talked with Rob when we were talking about the book about special atmospheres at Murrayfield. And look, some of these great games, great atmospheres have been Scotland wins. I think the big win against Australia in 2017, wins against England and France and the Six Nations, but some of them have been defeats. And the two games against the All Blacks 2 years ago in 2017, the Doddy games. And there was a wee hint of that with about 25 minutes to go. You almost got a sense from the crowd that people thought the bomb squad, that moment when they all were unleashed from the bench all at once.
I love that. And I said that, I called that, he's going to put all seven of them on at a time. I was delighted when he did.
And do you know what? The South Africans in the crowd were delighted, and it added a wee buzz to the whole thing. And then Scotland kind of weathered that storm of them coming on immediately and had the Springboks on the ropes for 5-10 minutes. My Pimpy goes to the bin, and you just thought at that time, if Scotland can score here, you never know.
It was the classic Scotland performance, wasn't it? It was just,
and
like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick. I'm ready to win and not be liked. I couldn't care if away teams enjoy the anthem. I didn't care that folk like coming to Murrayfield. I would rather they absolutely hated it because they didn't like getting beat. It just, and that pass that goes into touch, you just felt they're the things that just, the momentum swing, it just deflates you. It's like, oh, we've got to start again now.
Yeah, there was two. Matt Fagerson knocked the ball on right underneath the posts, and then that one, the Hugh Jones pass, they just felt like such big moments. When Glasgow won the URC final and when they won the semi-final, they took every chance that they created for themselves, and then they got a bit of luck. There was a kind of loose ball against Munster that they ran under the post. Kyle Steyn ran under the post and scored, and it just all felt like the wee things didn't go our way of our own doing. And then I think, as has been said elsewhere, look, I think Scotland got very, very little off the officials, and that'll be something that I think they have to sort that out, because that's a pattern and that's not against Christoph Ridley or any of the officials from the weekend, but like, it's too easy for other teams to dominate games because they got on top of a ref.
The Scott Cummings one, that's not high degree of danger. I'm really struggling with that. When they brought it back, and I'm trying to think, who is it that's getting pinged? And the commentators, I was watching on the telly, the commentators, I think initially thought it was Darge it was getting in bother, and then it was Scott Cummings, and it was confusing.
Yeah, it was really confusing, and I think it was confusing for everybody. And having been in the stadium, they've now got the ref linked up to the stadium.
Yeah,
but it's still, until the point that Christoph Ridley came over the stadium tannoy, it still was completely unclear what we were looking at. And Gregor Townsend said after he thought initially they had got the wrong player. It just, it all makes for a bit of a farcical situation that one of the coaches has got no idea what's going on. Nobody in the stadium's got any idea what's going on. Yet a TMO or a foul play review official has decided that this is worth upgrading to a 20-minute red card. And I said it in a tweet last night. Like, I'm dead against the 20-minute red card. I think it's a silly idea. But imagine that had been a straight, like an old-fashioned, a traditional red card, and we had to play 60 minutes with 14 men. It's just ludicrous. And I've watched it back, and I can see, okay, yeah, maybe yellow, a red card.
But this is where it could get to the point where we have every colour of the rainbow card, because that's not the same as a foul play, shoulder to the head, knocking somebody in the next week, or a tip tackle, or these are that the severity of that is not the severity of other things that are worthy of red cards, and that's that was what the yellow was kind of supposed to be, and now it's like, right, now we need an in between.
Yeah, and I think I kind of get the idea. I think the principle of the thing is fine. I was always concerned about how it would be managed and how it would be implemented. And I think we've seen 2 games on Sunday. Semi Radradra gets a red card, a 20-minute red card for a shoulder to the head, and Scott Cummings gets the same sanction for
what you got.
For what it was, which I'm not, was probably worthy of yellow. Now Semi Radradra ends up with a 3-week ban, and Scott Cummings, it feels like, is banned for a week because
you have to
better give him something.
And he wasn't going to play anyway.
And he wasn't going to play. So Scotland have kind of come out of that reasonably in terms of the future, but to play 20 minutes against the Springboks with 14 players is pretty tough. That said, I actually thought Scotland managed that 20 minutes pretty well.
They did all right. The game felt strange. It was tough to pick up. It's interesting saying about the atmosphere, because there was points certainly in the first half where it felt like the folk could have been watching the TV. There wasn't much going on. It was pretty quiet. I don't think there was a Mexican wave, but it kind of felt like it's on its way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that probably has something to do with the way South Africa play, isn't it? Like, they kick an awful lot. They grind teams down. There was a bit of that. I think that probably played a part. I think Scotland couldn't quite get going at times. Then, of course, Ben White scored the try that never was. And
the knock on was a shocker as well.
Yeah. On all fronts, look, it's just
the game. If I'm a punter that's just watching international rugby and has decided that because I've got TNT, I'm going to tune in, you must have been watching that going, this is too hard, this is too complicated. How can I be watching this? Like, why is that guy got carded? Why is that not allowed? Why was that scrum South Africa's penalty, and why was that scrum Scotland's penalty? I'm watching the game with Alan Jacobson, Chunk, who just was going on and on about the good old days, because obviously he beat the Springboks. So he's got all these stories. And he's saying, here's what I would do, and here's how this scrum goes. And I'm watching it with an international prop forward. And some of the scrums, he didn't know what was bleeding, the whistle was being blown for.
And there's, I've never ever been able to get into American football as a fan at all, for the reason that I was perplexed by special teams and attacked.
I've got right into it because Taylor's there now.
A story for another day, I think. Last week Strictly, this week Taylor Swift. But no, I mean, and I always kind of said, well, rugby's easier to follow, but it's not now, and we're making it, or the people who run the game are making it more and more difficult for people to put the telly on and say, well, wait a minute, I have no idea what's going on here. Just before we kind of drift away from the South Africa point, we're never going to win kicking for posts. I've criticised Scotland.
I have to admit, Richie, when they got that penalty, I thought, why not? Like, it's not the Six Nations. We're not playing for points. I did think that was a strange decision. And when they had the little confab, I thought, right, we're going to have a crack here.
I did too. And I've criticised Scotland in the past for not taking, or any team, not taking opportunities when they're so available. But it felt like South Africa were under the cosh a wee bit at that point, and taking the 3 was like the release of the valve that said, actually, you know what, lads, come back and play in our half. And it was a wee bit disappointing.
They're going to kick the leather off it and keep you in there. You've got a chance, and I also would like to see more teams. Like, there must be rehearsal, like the preparation of an international squad. Right, we've got a penalty here. They must have things up their sleeve, because if you take a scrum, and this was always when I coached, this was always the thing that worried me, because what you would do there is you would take scrum. If you're close at the touchline, you kick to touch and you catch and drive. But in both of those situations, you bring the referee and the whistle into it.
Yeah.
Because if the ref decides, right, that scrum was your fault, all of a sudden it's up and you've come away with nothing. But where I think you can take the referee out of it is, right, why do we not just play rugby? Can we tap and play? Can we shift the ball 2 passes and create a breakdown, and now we start building pressure again?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I've been quite disappointed with. You see teams like Leinster and the Bulls have, over the last couple of years, come up with these kind of innovative tap moves. They're not quite got a wall in them yet, but we'll get back to that. But, teams move the ball a bit. Scotland have a tendency to put the ball on the 5-metre line, and somebody, normally one of the front row, just runs head first at the opposition. Like, Gregor's a clever coach, and it feels like we could have a wee trick up our sleeve there, and we chose not to use it at the weekend. And look, it kept us in the game on the scoreboard, but it probably was a big relief.
There's France at the front of the line out against Japan. Are we cheeky?
Yeah, I think, Malcolm, that's a fair point. Getting pinged a lot, legitimate to take 3 and get back down there.
I kind of agree, Malcolm. I get it, but South Africa, you've then got to go the length of the pitch again to get into that position, and that's something that South Africa quite often prevent you from doing. And Scotland, it was close, but it was 4 tries to 0. And this is the naivety of me, who's never been in professional sport, but there was no league points on offer. There was no, why not tap and play? Because if we get into a position in the Six Nations where we need 7 points, we're behind by 6 and there's 5 minutes to go against England, France, whoever, we can't take the 3. So we've been presented with a situation in the Autumn Nations Test. Let's play and see if it works, and that gives us confidence when we need it. It's like this week, we're going to play Portugal, and my concern always with Scottish teams is we rise to the teams we're playing against, but quite often we drop to the teams we're playing against. And what I don't want is for the Portuguese game to turn into nonsense that we win by 90 points. But by the same token, I can't really handle a 13-12 win either.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with both. And I think this, to talk about Portugal, Richie says, I'm worried we do too many changes.
I don't think we've got any choice, Richie, my man. I think that's the game now. And do you know what would really wind me up, Richie, is if we pick a team this week for Portugal and it's the same team that plays against Chile the week after, that they get a full cap one week or an A cap the week after. But that's what I need to stop hating the player and hate the game. That's just what it is now.
But you're right. That would be a bit of a kick in the teeth to some of those players. I think my worry about picking any basically of the players that played the last couple of weeks, particularly some of the forwards, is in a couple of positions. Like imagine Xander plays against Portugal and rolls an ankle. Like that, it would just be a total disaster. Imagine Finn, I know Adam Hastings played well against Fiji, but imagine Finn gets an injury against Portugal. Well, if I was Gregor, I would be tearing my hair out, pardon the pun. But if I was Bath, I would be furious.
If Darcy gets to play and Duhan doesn't,
I imagine there'll be a chap at Gregor's door making sure that neither of them, from Duhan, making sure neither of them are in the team. And look, there's no need, like without the try record stuff, there's no need for Darcy Graham to be playing against
Darcy Graham will want to play,
and so will Duhan.
Darcy will definitely want to play. Duhan was reasonably well marshalled at the weekend. I think at one point when he got tackled into touch, there was about 12 boys on him just to make sure.
Yeah, I think there was a wee bit of something after that as well. Malcolm's back. Again, I think this is to the point of the innovation. Yeah, if we score 4 tries for back lineouts, look, I agree with that.
Malcolm, do you know what makes me laugh about all this? We couldn't be any more Scottish sports fan if we tried. Like we are. It probably doesn't matter what Scotland do. We're still not going to be happy. But I would quite like to be unhappy and winning. But you're right. If we score 4. Like if Johnny Matthews, and I'm delighted that the big man's in the Scotland squad, like he could come away from Saturday with 4 tries to his total and have 2 caps and 5 tries if, like Malcolm says, we catch and drive lineouts.
Do you know, I thought you had almost scuppered Johnny Matthews' chance of a recall when you revealed his pudding of choice for the Moffat Rugby Club dinner.
Oh, what a boy. Me, Johnny Matthews and Rona Lloyd doing the Moffat Rugby Club. What a night. Rona and Johnny were absolute class. Johnny, I tell you what, Johnny nearly licked his plate clean with all of them. And the guy was sitting next to it was away when the dessert got delivered. And he had a big bit of cake of some kind and if he hadn't got back, I think Johnny was going to inhale that as well. The boy likes his food. Great lad, though.
Great preparation for playing Portugal.
No, he was somewhat. My phone was going bananas on Saturday with folks saying, Johnny Matthews, like even the guys at Moffat going, is he still coming? Because it looks like he's in the Scotland squad. Because Craig Watson posted a picture of Johnny training and everybody. Even Rona messaged me, is Johnny in the Scotland squad? Is he still coming? I had so many folk up me saying, is Johnny still coming? He was class. Go for it.
I was just going to say, and on a serious note, it is actually good to see him involved because I think,
Delighted.
Winning, like I think somebody said this before the Fiji game about Darcy Ray. Winning 1 cap's special, but actually winning your 2nd cap is as special as winning your 1st because it gets you off that 1 cap wonder list.
I would take it. It's a list I would take. In fact, I might message Gregor now and see if he needs me for Saturday.
If he doesn't, the following Saturday against Chile, or you suppose you would only get an A cap for that.
I'd take that. I'd take an A cap.
Yeah, I'm sure you and I would, and plenty of others would bite Gregor's hand off for that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. There's going to be changes, right? Suck it up and get on with it. Stop moaning. I'm interested to see who he picks and where, because in some respects there's quite a lot of players for certain positions. Like scrum half, what does he do? Does Dobie get to start, or does George Horn and Ali Price come back in? At 12, who does he pick? Is it Tom Jordan? Is it Stafford McDowell? Or does he give Tom Jordan a shot at 10? Does Tom Jordan not get to play now? He's played at 50. Like, does Matt Curry come in at 13? Like, in the back line, there's so much up for grabs.
Yeah, and I think up front it's probably a wee bit more straightforward because you want
because it's just what you lot do. Like it's
exactly.
A prop's a prop, a hooker's a hooker. The tall lads get lifted now. Like it's just
it's where the game's won and lost, is it not?
Oh, so you reckon?
But like Pierre and Xander will get a rest. So then, does it mean that Rory Sutherland and Elliot Miller-Mills, having come off the bench and not fared that well against South Africa, get 50 minutes? Or does everybody get a rest and you bring in Alec Hepburn or Jamie Batty and Will Hurd? There's... Even if you take the starting 15 from the South Africa game out, there's enough squad depth that creates a wee bit of, I think, did he give Kyle Rowan Darcy another week and play Jamie Dobie on the wing?
I hope no.
I hope not.
I hope Dobie doesn't play on the wing. I hope Dobie. But then George Horn's not had a shot.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you get, you probably want George Horn, who's been one of Glasgow's most important players over the last year, is now in a Scotland squad to play Portugal. But if he's not in the squad to play Portugal, is he going to come straight in and play Australia? That seems unlikely.
4 weeks at the Orium's a pretty big ask without getting to touch a ball.
Or play against Chile in an A fixture. It's a lot. So I think the balance of that is tough for Gregor. And, then you talk about, okay, if there's no Finn, let's presume no Darge and no Sione, you need to find a captain. So is that James Ritchie? Is that, you could. An off-field captain from the bench.
No, I'd rather be on the field.
You were off the field.
Like when you're looking at this autumn series, right? Even if you decided I'm going with my best team every week, the preparation for Fiji is completely different. Well, that's not true. It's very different from the Springboks.
Yeah.
The preparation for Portugal from the Springboks has to be completely different because we're probably looking at a massive percentage, if not wholesale, 23 for 23 folk.
Yeah.
So you can't prepare the same way. And then you go again to Australia, but the Australian challenge is different for the Springboks, but it'll probably be similar selection, but you're preparing for it differently. And against Portugal, you didn't want to be silly, but are we going to have a crack for everywhere?
I think you kind of saw that in the summer. Because those games weren't played out in front of us, we probably didn't talk about it as much. That actually Scotland were quite happy to say, do you know what? Let's put Stafford or Sione or whoever it was playing 12 up the middle, and next phase let's put a back row up the middle, and then let's play. Let's, rather than kick the ball to Canada, let's just keep a hold of it. And in 5 phases, we'll somebody will skittle a defender and we'll be in behind and we'll make a break. So yeah, Richie's back with a prediction. I think Johnny Fortey's Darcy 5.
Do you know what, Richie? I would take that. I would take that. Both good humans, and neither of those things would upset me. Neither of those things would upset me.
Hastings is my fave.
Yeah, that's because he's hot, tip top. That's why, And that is that you? Are you actually a pumpkin? Oh no, it's a neep. It's a turnip.
And Malcolm's back saying Dobie deserves a shot at 9.
Malcolm, I'm beginning to think that you're me. That I agree, Malcolm. I totally agree, but I do feel for Horny. And I don't know. I think it's almost like there's too many of them.
I suppose the other thing is that you'll have to kind of weigh up. There are injuries now, particularly up front. I'm going back to talk about forward. Sorry, Bruce. No Jack Dempsey, which is a massive loss, not for this week, let's be honest. But I'm gutted for him because I would have liked to have seen him play against Australia in the form he's in. But now he's out. What happens? Does Bayliss come straight in?
Why are you excited to see him play against Australia? Is there a connection there?
No connection whatsoever.
Right. Okay. Bayliss, yeah. I don't know.
Does Bayliss come in, or does Matt Fagerson go back to number 8? Does that open the door for Crosby? Does it then make the starting back, or Richie? Does it make the starting back row this weekend almost like a trial? Who plays well might get the starting jersey against Australia.
Freddy Douglas, he's straight in. Freddy Douglas play this week, play against Australia. Heard it here first.
Let's make no mistake. John DL yesterday, world-class superstar Freddy Douglas.
I was a world-class superstar at school as well.
And that's my worry.
Yeah, that's my worry.
I
think Freddy Douglas is class. I think he's class. I think his potential is phenomenal. But he's not a shot at the ball.
John basically said yesterday he's going to play his first competitive game of adult rugby in a Scotland jersey. Now, whether that's this weekend or against probably Chile, doesn't really matter. It's kind of irrelevant. That's bonkers. But I'm a wee bit concerned that we pile all this pressure on a kid who's still a teenager and expect him to do the things he's done in the 20s and in A-game friendlies that, nobody was allowed in to watch except us in the media. And even then we had to pretend we weren't there for, it's just nonsense. Anyway, that worries me. It worries me that we put too much on him too soon. But I
get you, but I think that's coming from probably experience in another game where young folk get pressure put on, because Freddie, it's not like he's walking down the street getting mobbed with folk.
Totally.
John Dale's made the comment, and probably, I hope he believes it. I think Freddie's got potential to be an outstanding player. My worry is there's quite a lot of people in front of him at club level and international level. So realistically, looking at a timeline of when we will know if he's world class, it's probably quite far away.
Yeah,
if he goes to the next World Cup, that's probably quite early, because there's still a lot of players in front of him, and who knows when a Scottish qualified player somewhere is going to be unearthed that plays in the back row.
It's true. It's a true point. But I think if he's that, and this is the sort of counterpoint to what I was saying a minute ago, too often, look at Harry Patterson. Harry Patterson, I think I first heard of when he was maybe 16 or 17, and folk talked him up as the next big thing, and he's proven to be an international quality, a pro quality player. But he's had to wait. He's had to be patient for that chance. If Freddie Douglas is good enough and he's knocking on the door of international squads now, get him in. Let's see how he does, and then we've got to ask the question: if this guy's deemed good enough by the national team, why can't he get a game for Edinburgh?
But by the same token, Hamish Watson's chapping at the door going, hang on, why am I no? Where am I? Luke Crosby, Connor Boyle. He's playing in a country where he's at a club where there's folk playing for his national team who are ahead of him. And that's, we've kind of got onto something that could be a far bigger deal here. But Freddie Douglas is a class act. There's a chance that him, Tom Curry, and Liam McConnell could be the Scotland back row in 3, 4, 5 years' time for the next 3, 4, 5 years. But who knows what's going to happen? There's me lumping pressure on those three. Not that they give a rat's ass or anybody else does about that opinion, but they're three kids with unbelievable potential. But at the moment, that's all it is. It's potential.
And this is it.
And I just, the chances for him to get his first exposure as going into a Scotland camp, and because we're playing Portugal, that shouldn't be how it is. Now, maybe, I don't know, he's probably, if this is the case, he's probably valuable to Edinburgh, so he's not going to end up going down to Doncaster like McVie and Curry have, but you'd love to see the kid playing rugby.
Totally, like 100%. I think that's, we said this, we talked about Super 6 and stuff, Super Series. Like, Freddie Douglas just is one of those kids. Liam McConnell, Tom Curry, they just need games. They just need to be playing every week, but at a level that makes sure that they're continuing on that sort of upward trajectory. But, you know, Gregor's clearly seen something in him. The Scotland coaches, there was a story Gregor told when he announced the squad that they'd been, the senior squad during the Six Nations had been training against the 20s, and Freddie picked a fight with Pierre Schumann.
Good
and
lad.
I think this week he was sort of mixing it a bit with Matt Fagerson. So,
Good
look,
lad.
he's not afraid to take any kind of, but he's not been overawed by the whole thing, clearly.
No, he's a mongrel.
So, good luck to him, and let's see what comes of the next couple of weeks and how he does it at that level. And then we can start judging, all right, how good could he be?
Yeah, well, I think he's going to be class. The kid just needs to play. I don't know what team he's going to pick this week. I think Luke Crosby will be in, but Jamie Ritchie's maybe going to have to, and Josh Bayless, if they are looking at what do we do without Dempsey, I'd be interested to know what the bench looks like against Australia. Do they go 5-3 or does he go 6-2 against Australia? There's a lot. And none of us have got a clue about Portugal, and I'd love to know what analysis they've done on Portugal. They obviously played the USA last week and got beat, but I don't know. I wonder how much time they've spent on Portugal when they've got to stick a whole team together this week. Yeah,
I'm going to guess not much. I think when we spoke to Brian Eason in the lead up to the women playing Wales and Fiji before they went to WXV, he said, look, we want to just implement our own game. And I think Scotland will think here, look, probably we're good enough to beat Portugal if we get our own systems right. Let's worry about that. And we'll have a look at some of the sort of general patterns they run against America at the weekend. But I can't see Ewan Johnson and Alex Craig, for instance, sitting in front of laptops studying every single line-out move. I think they will be more focused on get your own drill right, and that should be good enough.
Yeah, they'll be looking to plunder Portugal's line-out. The bit in the centres interests me as well, because I don't know what he's going to pick, because you got Tuipulotu there, McDowell, Curry, Hutchison, maybe Jordan. Like there's still a lot of people know how to go, and this looks like it's the week to give them a go. Adam Hastings, does he come in, or did he get a shot against Fiji? Right, Tom Jordan, you're at 10 because that makes room in the centre for a guy. I cannot get anywhere close to what Gregor's going to pick this week. I can't. No. I've got no clue, and he could pick anything, and we would go, what about him? What about him?
Yeah, and this is it. And on the Scotland Rugby News site, Rob Robertson, Ewan Booth Robertson, and I had a go at that yesterday. We tried to pick our own teams and kind of what Gregor would do this week, but it's just so difficult to read. Like, for instance, I picked a team initially, and I had Harry Patterson at fullback, which I think is the team that's on the site, and then I thought, actually, if Kyle Rowe becomes a doubt, if you want to rest Darcy, play Harry Patterson on the wing, put Rory Hutchinson at fullback, just to get him in the team. Matt Curry at 13, but then Stafford's played off the bench, so do you move Matt Curry to 12 and put Mosesi Tupou? We're right. You could go through every position. We won't know. We will know this time tomorrow, thankfully. But yeah, I presume a few of the questions that are aimed at Gregor tomorrow will be, what about this guy? Because it is a bigger squad, and then I think there'll be more players come into the squad after the game that kind of basically join the A team, and then they'll split into 2 squads for next week, which will be a challenge to kind of organise. Just before
have you heard me do the A team theme tune?
No. Do you want to do it now?
Nah. It's fine.
Should we save that for next week?
Okay.
Good. Updating Dempsey, definitely not available for Australia. They've not ruled him out, I think, is the good news. But the fact that they've let him go from the squad and he's now back at Glasgow doesn't suggest great things. If you think Kyle Rowe, when he injured his hamstring against Fiji, stayed with the squad, did all his rehab with the Scotland squad, whereas Dempsey, Max Williamson, Gregor Brown have all gone back to Glasgow. So they haven't ruled him out, but I would suggest the chances of him playing against the country he used to represent are slim.
Did he? Away.
Would you believe it?
Can you do that now?
Incredibly so. It's a strange old rule. Remember, for years they got rid of that one, but yeah, it's back.
The Bashops and Frank.
Yeah, exactly. The Bashops.
There's a lot of them have done it. Listen, pal, enjoyed it. We're chewing it all over. I think what we're hoping for is it's a nice atmosphere. It's a decent performance. It's a reasonably big win. And it gets us set up for the last test, which is really now all guns blazing. When we spoke a while ago, we were saying if we get 3 out of 4 and then Australia go and turn England over, I hope the RGs get a result in Ireland. That would fill me with joy. I love Argentinian rugby. I love how they're all Argentinian. They're all there. They're all like, I love it. I would love to go to Argentina and watch rugby.
We were inundated last week with commenters from South Africa. I now await the influx of Irish rugby fans piling on you because you've backed an Argentina win.
Although Cian Healy is getting his 133rd cap, and he got a milestone at the Hive, and I got to announce it, and quite a lot of people were very kind to me about saying thank you for doing that, and he seems like the kind of guy. I think me and Cian Healy would be good mates. I think we could be friends. Cian Healy
must have played about 3 million games of professional rugby.
Yeah,
I feel like he's been on the go for forever.
Aye, and he just seems class, and he just seemed like you would only do that if he enjoyed it. Surely, I worry about what happens after, but I'm pretty sure he'll be all right. But I think that, I hate it when folk on big milestones didn't get the result. Like I hate it when it's their 100. Or like I remember when the Cop was getting knocked down and made all seater, and Liverpool lost to Norwich. And I was like, that's rubbish. Like that shouldn't have been how it went. You should get to win on your big moments, but. Yeah, it's a nice one. I think I like that we're playing Portugal. I'm sad that we can't go full blown, but that's just the game. And you know those boys, what an experience to have played in the World Cup, got results, played South Africa, play at Murrayfield. Hopefully it's growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I think it's a massive opportunity for them. I think they're in a bit of a rebuild. It's it won't be exactly the same squad as was at the World Cup. The fabulously named Mike Tadger, the hooker, is.
I can't believe Tadger's not playing. Imagine being Tadger in Scotland. That would have been absolute gold.
It would have been brilliant. But
he must be Scottish qualified.
Yeah, we should have asked our Portuguese friend
the marketing for that, having a boy called Tadger playing for Scotland, I mean, that's a marketing person's dream, is it not?
I'm not sure how many adverts that are Tadger related you could have gotten away with, to be honest. But anyway,
I've made a list.
Excellent. Well, be sure to share that somewhere that's not on this podcast, please.
Right. Okay. My Tadger marketing for Scotland. Anyway, this has taken a downturn, and I'm blaming you for it. Big fella, great to see you. Enjoy the game. Hopefully, we get a result and we can keep the kettle boiling, because the South African one was another one to add to the pile of the ones that got away.
It certainly was. And yeah, let's fingers crossed that this weekend is slightly more straightforward.
Nice one. Cheers, pal. Okay, folks, you can subscribe, get involved. There's heaps going on, loads of good stuff on Scotland Rugby News. We'll be breaking the squad list very, very soon. It's £4 for 4 months or £18 for the year. Get involved. It's good stuff, I promise. And if you're going to the game, enjoy, and please cheer on Portugal. Tune in. We'll be back very, very soon. Look after yourselves. I'm Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg Shaped, and he's Gav Harper from Scotland Rugby News. See you soon.